Hello, allies. Welcome back to another episode of the Allies for Justice podcast. I'm your host, Julia, and today we have a very special guest, Claudia Viek. And Claudia is a distinguished entrepreneur and advocate for women in business. As the founder of the Invest in Women Entrepreneurship Initiative in 2018, she is dedicated to addressing the chronic underfunding of women entrepreneurs and supporting their growth. Prior to this, she served as CEO of Cameo, California Association for Micro Enterprise Opportunity for 10 years, a network serving 50,000 micro and small businesses across California. With over 25 years of experience, Claudia is a recognized leader in the fields of micro enterprise development, business incubation, and micro lending. Her work focuses on the transformative potential of small businesses, particularly in local economies. She has a passion for helping women entrepreneurs become successful leaders in their communities. In addition to her professional endeavors, she co-founded the Bob Znida Youth Leaders Program, which empowers the next generation of public service professionals. Claudia, welcome.
Thank you, Julia. And I want to point out the wonderful print poster back here by Michael Roman, one of our,
Ooh, what's
yeah,
that?
it's a woman warrior. It's a Mexican woman warrior, and that I have this in my study. And maybe I should just sit like this a little bit because I feel he's a local artist from and there's some other pictures in here too of the one over here is my son and me at the uh, first homeless hearing at City Hall that I organized in 1982. You know, before that, we didn't have homeless, but thanks to Reagan, we have we're reaping what we sowed then. And I brought him. He was only like 5 months to the hearing. So, and a picture was taken of him holding a little sign that said "shelter the homeless" on it, or something. What does it say? Yeah, shelter the homeless. So I always tell him he has long roots of social justice going back there. So yeah, I think I'll have my family in the background here.
We got the
Yeah.
warrior in the background.
Yeah, I kind of like doing that. And also because some people might recognize the artist because he's a local artist that I bought it at Back to the Picture Frame Shop on Valencia Street, who's run by Servio Gomez, who is my first student from Renaissance. So beloved Mission District artist, and it's a real woman warrior that inspires me every day when I come in to do my work on behalf of women. So
Beautiful. I love that it's a local artist in the Mission District too. That's awesome. Okay, so sounds good. I just can't wait to ask you. I've been looking forward to ask you how or what are some examples that IWE, the Invest in Women's Initiative, has empowered women in our community here in San Francisco. And yeah, go ahead and take it away.
well, as you said in your very gracious introduction, thank you, Julia. It's a pleasure to be here and to be working in my own community too, that I've lived in for 50 years or more, in the Mission Bernal Heights area. So yeah, I've been working in what's called entrepreneurial development since the late 80s. I was kind of a pioneer because I was so curious to see what would happen if you helped low and moderate income people, women, people of color to start their own businesses and to, create wealth for themselves and their families and, create more taxes, more tax revenues, more jobs for our community. And we didn't know what we were doing when we first started. That's why I'm an entrepreneur too. I kind of take a chance. I have a belief that in a concept, and in fact, it's been tremendously successful. I started an organization called the Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center. In fact, I bought that poster from Servio Gomez from Back to the Picture Frame Shop, who was my very first student at Renaissance. And he's still functioning today and has a lot of little businesses going. So after all of these years working in community-based organizations and then the statewide group Cameo, I just got fed up with the pathetic underfunding of women entrepreneurs and the organizations that serve them. And I thought, this is a good time of my life to be focused, laser focused on women. And what happened? The pandemic, right after I started. And we saw women's business centers in particular. These are organizations funded by the U.S. Department of the Small Business Administration. Their Office of Women's Business Ownership funds about 145 women's business centers around the country. And I had run one myself back in the 90s. So I thought, let me work with them and bring more resources to bear, whether it's capital, whether it's grant money. Let's really showcase what women have accomplished in California. And as a result of that, I've been working also at the federal level to get more money into the SBA and other programs that would support women entrepreneurs. And I've been doing that now for, about 6 years, 6 years. And we've been successful in raising quite a few $1 million, $8 million recently for women's business centers in California. We've raised the number from 14 to 21 during this time, serving about, what was it, last year, 12,000 businesses, 12,000 clients. So it's really pretty substantial. And I could go into that further, but I wanted to just talk about why it's so important to support women entrepreneurs, because they are really leading the economic recovery in our communities, and not just urban like San Francisco, but in rural parts too. And I think it's really important that these are very small businesses, often just working out of their homes, just like I am, like a lot of people are. And but when you look at all the women-owned businesses, we're ubiquitous, and they're on the main streets, retail, cafes, shops. They're on the side streets, in people's offices, therapists, dentists, chiropractors, accountants, for example, professional services, and they're also home-based businesses, and particularly childcare. And childcare businesses have really benefited from our advocacy in California. And women's business centers last year helped to create about 3,700 new slots of childcare through their programs. And people need to know this, because when you create a childcare slot, that means that usually a woman is able to re-enter the workforce and increase her household income. So women's business centers and women entrepreneurs really contribute to our state's bottom line. There's very little data, and I want to change that.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, that was so cool. I thought it was like so interesting. So when you said 12,000 businesses, is that in San Francisco alone, or is that like in our country, in the world?
California.
Like
And
oh wow,
the women's
only
business,
California.
there's a network of women's business centers throughout California. There are 21 centers, and I serve as their state advocate to raise funds and raise the profile of what their impacts, economic impacts are. And I mentioned childcare is just one example, and we'll talk about that later a little bit more. But yes, throughout the US, there are 145 women's business centers throughout the country that work with about 150,000 women last year. So we in California, wait, let me just look at, I think I gave you the wrong statistic. Oh yeah, no, 12,000. That's right, 12,000 in California alone, because we're very robust, we have a very strong network, and we all support each other. Just like we support women entrepreneurs, we support each other as professional leaders and advocates working in this field. Again, because we've been undervalued, because we've been seen as too small. So we're changing that and turning what people consider sort of a field of entrepreneurial education for women into a movement of empowering women business owners.
Awesome. So cool. That is an impressive statistic, I'll tell you that. Also, I wanted to ask you, what are some ways that IWE, Invest in Women's Initiative, its partners, and everyone involved have empowered entrepreneurs? It's kind of like a layered question. So I guess it's three questions in one. Empowered women entrepreneurs foster, how does that connected to fostering sustainable economic growth? And how is that connected to the economic justice within our community here locally?
Our goal is to create wealth in
Mhm.
low and moderate income or underserved communities. And we do that by helping women start their own business. Men benefit also from the programs, but I'm specifically focusing on women's business centers. About 75%, 80% of their clients are women. So when you say partners, the women's business centers in the Bay Area, and let's just talk about the Bay Area because that's the focus of your podcast, correct? So I would say the partners are the following. One of them is the program I started, of course, my baby, the Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center. And that's rencenter.org. A New America operates in Oakland and the East Bay, Alameda County. I also work with several other organizations that are not specifically women's business centers, but are entrepreneur programs that serve a majority women. One is called Centro Community Partners that has an incredible app that you can download onto your mobile phone and do a basic business plan and cash flow projection and budget. It's very special app and it's free. So Central Community Partners is a very good resource for somebody who's just starting their business and wants to do some basic planning, needs the planning. Because remember, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. That's one of our little mottos. And that's why I push business planning so much. Prospera is a really wonderful program specifically focused on Latinas and works in the Bay Area in general. Working Solutions is an excellent community development finance institution, CDFI. It's a nonprofit lender. And they're located in San Francisco, and they provide a lot of assistance to women who are looking to start to grow their business. So you have not so much startup, but usually in early stage, you can go there to get a small loan, and they work with you to get you ready for lending and have a lot of interesting products. So Working Solutions is an important resource. And then just in general, besides the ones I mentioned that I work closely with, the California WBC.org is a listing and a map of all of the women's business centers in California. So if you're listening to the podcast and you don't live in San Francisco or the Bay Area, you can find a women's business center pretty much in every region. And many of them have virtual training and coaching and services for you too.
Wow, that is cool. That's quite the support. I really like that free business plan app. That I'd never known of all of these support and supporting programs uh, and
Yeah,
companies like such as
I,
yourself and your
I just
partners.
thought of another partner too, because I'm on their board of directors. It's a national platform that matches young entrepreneurs under 30 with mentors. I've been actually working as a mentor, volunteering with them for years, and now I'm on their board. So it works with thousands, I think 8,000 young people are currently using this fantastic, it's an app too. They have apps and they also have training and education, but you can be matched with somebody who from a business to advise you on all manner of things that you're dealing with in your business. And it's for people who haven't quite started their business too, and they are not helped. Young people don't have resources, young entrepreneurs. So sky's the limit, SKYS, the limit.org. It's a great resource for mostly younger, the under 30. You can be over 30 too, but it's better for young people.
Wow, that is awesome. Thank you so much. That what a treat for listeners to just have the list of those resources you just mentioned. I'm sure I'm not the only one who is hearing this kind of for the first time and thinking, "Oh my God, that's so cool! I can't wait to check that out." And
Do you know somebody who wants to who wants to start a business, Julia? Do you have any friends who are entrepreneurs? What are they facing?
yeah, actually, I do have a couple of friends that are entrepreneurs. But
Yes.
yeah, speaking of, stories of women and other entrepreneurs and stuff, like, my friends with their little Etsy businesses.
Yeah,
Do
right.
you have like,
Exactly.
do you have like a story that you feel comfortable sharing of, maybe someone who's just started out from like not really knowing where to begin and then have gone through your incubator in the IWE incubator and has come out with this a successful business with like venture capital and it's growing and it's successful, something like that. I would love
Well,
to hear.
not exactly what you described, but I can tell you a couple of success stories. I don't actually serve entrepreneurs directly, except from time to time when I'm asked, and my volunteer work. I'm an advocate at the state and national level for resources for women entrepreneurs and the organizations that support them. So I have a slightly different role than the direct service ones that I had in the past. But I am motivated and my heart is, moved by the successes of women who benefit from the programs I'm working with. So one example is her name is Maribel Aguiar. She has a Apollo Daycare. She's a home-based daycare center with, I think, licensed for 8 children, very small, toddlers mostly. And she's in East Palo Alto. She came to the Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center that has an opening, has a branch, excuse me, in East Palo Alto. And she came because her original partner in the daycare left, and she was, kind of left hanging with a huge amount of rent to pay and, all of the responsibilities. So they worked with her on her business plan. They helped her get a loan and a small grant to start her daycare. She had a passion for children. She never run a business before, but she had a passion for children. She had her childcare credential, and but she didn't know all the kind of nuts and bolts of what it would take to get it to positive cash flow and to be able to sustain it over time. And a lot of people don't do well in their business because they're very excited about their idea, but they haven't really analyzed its sustainability over time and how much money they're going to need to get started. So having a business plan is very important. It doesn't have to be a very thick, complicated business plan. The lean canvas is like a very, people use here post-it notes for their different business planning issues, and then they can change them as things change. So that's one of the resources we often recommend is the lean canvas. It's a short book that tells you how to develop your business plan in a very thoughtful but flexible way. So getting back to the success stories, Maribel worked with the East Palo Alto Renaissance Center, and she got started. She has a full house of kids, a fantastic website, and she just got the Entrepreneur of the Year award this like a month ago. I went to a big event for her. Home-based childcare is tends to be more affordable and more flexible for parents, especially low-income parents that are trying to re-enter the workforce. And women's business centers have been a tremendous partner with the other childcare advocate groups to provide the business skills, not how to work with kids. That's another set of skills that you get from getting your child from experience and from getting your early childhood credential, usually at a community college. But what they don't teach you is how to collect fees, how to handle your budgets, how to find financing if you need it, how to purchase your home facility when you get to that point. And that's where women's business centers come in and provide really important you know, information and support. So sometimes it's not just saying, do this, do that. It's like encouraging, being a cheerleader for an entrepreneur, because so many people are discouraged from taking these steps. I wanted to say their risks. They're actually reducing their risk by getting the support and the information that business centers can provide. There are also small business development centers in every county that work with a lot of women. So that's another resource, but I'm particularly focused on women's business centers because they work with the whole woman, sort of where she is at the time that she comes through the door. So it's a little different approach, a little different model. So the other, I wanted to give the other success story goes way back and actually refers to Servio Gomez, back to the picture, my first student. I think his example is really interesting. He was an immigrant from El Salvador. He came when he was a teenager, like 18 or so. He was going to art school and he was helping to support himself by selling oranges on the freeway in Los Angeles. So then he started managing other people who were selling oranges on the freeway. And then he decided to, he learned how to, after doing that, he learned how to do framing, and he was sort of apprenticed to a frame shop. When he came to San Francisco, his objective was to open a frame shop, which he did, and then he failed because he hadn't had any notion about how to make it work financially. So he came to the Renaissance Center and he developed a business plan and got a lot of coaching from our business consultant, Paul Terry. And that was, like I said, was a long time ago, but he opened up his center on Valencia Street, which was really not a yuppie street, as you know, it was not highly developed. It was like mostly closed storefronts and unpainted, was not a vibrant commercial strip. And he was able to help make it a vibrant commercial strip, along with several other Renaissance graduates that opened. Encanto was a little store, Mexican what do you call artifacts and jewelry. It's not open now, but it was a wonderful store. There was also a bookstore, a Spanish language bookstore. There were a number of entrepreneurs who came through our program who started their businesses on Valencia. But anyway, Servio was able to buy next door. He opened a cafe. His wife runs the cafe. Now he also opened another cafe in the Bayview. He bought a home. That's what he did first, was he bought a home. And that's what most entrepreneurs do, I have found, and women, that when their businesses are successful, one of the first things they do is to purchase a home. So that's what asset building, wealth building means. And that's why entrepreneurship is so important and why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah. Wow. This is like so I loved that story that you just told. I loved both those stories. But it's so inspiring because especially at a time like now, I feel like even more so than I don't know. Even more now than ever, I see people who are like, I think I have to start my own business. I think I can't rely on a company or anything to I
Mhm.
need to create my own security by starting my own business.
Right.
And I see that so more and more often now. So I think speaking to you and speaking about IWE at a time like this is just so, it's going to apply and resonate with so many people. And I just kind of am thinking of this question, not just for myself, but for others who might not know, like, who might not know. A question I'm thinking is, an incubator, that sounds like, you probably have to pay. It sounds really expensive. Probably have to pay a bunch of really smart people to tell me how to create a business plan, how to do this, how to do that. And that's probably going to cost like a fortune. Could you please like kind of clear or explain a little bit about that so people can have a better understanding and not be so um, like hesitant when it or
Right. Well, certainly you can always hire a private consultant to work with you individually or to write your business plan for you, but I don't recommend that. I recommend rolling up your sleeves and learning how to do it yourself because you're the one who's going to have to make the decisions ultimately about what direction your business is going, what its vision for growth is going to be. So if you decide to put in that kind of work and attention, there are many free services around. The women's business centers, some of them are sliding scale, but most of them are very, very low cost or free. These small business development centers that I mentioned earlier too, that also are in every county, they are free. The coaching is free as well. Um, so no one is turned away. There's sometimes some, like I said, depending on one's income, there would be a sliding scale for the classes, the longer classes. So money is not an issue. But as you know, we are all entrepreneurs. We feel that people should value what they do and if they can't pay, maybe get involved as a volunteer later on. We did that a lot at Renaissance, creating a community of entrepreneurs that go on to support each other over time. That's a big value of mine is building communities.
oh, okay, that's cool. And what are you meaning by volunteer? Like for the Renaissance, for example?
You mean the volunteering I do?
Or the not the volunteering you do, which I do want to ask about that because that's like on a federal and state level, and that sounds really interesting too. But for when you said people could volunteer in the Renaissance, they kind of help each other out. I was just kind of
Oh,
wondering. Um,
well, um, people who've come through the program and started their business often come back and teach classes or provide coaching to other students coming behind them. So I I can't even think of, there's just so many hundreds and hundreds that I've known over the years, but uh, it's wonderful to see that happen. Oh yeah, Fred Pollock. He was a very young architect, and his business, Van Meter Williamson Pollock, is super established now, very successful, and he does volunteer back to the Renaissance, serves on their board, and coaches new entrepreneurs, not necessarily architects, but people who are often creatives. In San Francisco, we have a lot of creative people in the arts, artisans, architects, um, people involved in creative work. And so they need the business side because they don't learn that when they go to art school or film school or whatever. So we help to provide that, fill that gap. And that's a very important part of our local economy, are our artists and artisans.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering, like, what is like, if I'm sure there are a few, what's one common maybe misconception or thing that, young, early entrepreneurs maybe miss or don't know um, that's like kind of like a golden nugget of information that you've maybe seen like throughout
Yeah.
like your 25 years of experience.
Well, people often say you don't know what you don't know. And so I hear that a lot from people who've gone through the program. God, I never realized that I need to be thinking about this. And if I hadn't come here, I wouldn't have been exposed to other people who were also thinking about this. And we're all focused on being successful. So that's a very important kind of an ancillary outcome from being involved with an entrepreneurship center, or as an incubator, as you call it, business incubator. And by the way, Renaissance does have space that's very inexpensive that entrepreneurs can rent, whether it's just a little office or whether it's an enclosed space or just a place to come and have meetings. You can arrange for that type of resource. So that's special too. So it's an incubator and an incubator without walls as well. Things that people need to know. Okay, I would say the biggest area is the financial planning and financial education. And I mean, just understanding how to do cash flow analysis, or some people call it scenario planning, where you plan out what you expect your income, your revenue going to be, what your expenses are going to be, looking at the relationship between that, where you're going to have to maybe increase your marketing to be able to make your monthly nut of expenses. Those kinds of analyses are actually really empowering. I was never a math lover when I was in school, but when I learned how to do cash flow and planning projections, cash flow projections, it was like having a Bible. It was like I felt so in control of what I was doing. Now, I was running a nonprofit, but that's, same thing as a business, except that your money comes from a variety of funding sources, but it's the same thing. You have to cultivate them, you have to research them, you have to decide where the fit is. So you have to plan very carefully, because it's not, it's vacillates. Sometimes you are good and you get the funding, sometimes you don't. Market for a certain kind of cookie, maybe everybody would be, really excited about it. And then there's so many bakeries, then your bakery's not the hot thing anymore. So you have to always be constantly creative in how you market what you've got. Just because your parents or your family love that cookie doesn't mean that it's going to be sold in the marketplace. What other kinds of products do you need to have there in order to be successful? There's a lot of competition. How do you distinguish yourself from the competition? If you're going to lease a space, what kind of sit there for a day at different times of the day and night and see what kind of foot traffic goes by and whether they are people who would buy your product. There's so many techniques for testing out the validity and marketability of your product or service. And so it's important to be able to test those out within a supportive atmosphere. And that's why you hear me keep coming back to the idea of training and coaching is just essential. Everybody wants a loan, right? They're always talking about getting their loan, but you need to think about how you're going to pay back that loan. And it's not just a bank or a nonprofit lender like Urban Solutions. They all want to know how much product are you or service are you going to generate? In other words, how much income will you generate to be able to pay off this extra debt that you're carrying? And a lot of times people don't really think that logically about it because they're so excited about their idea, and they haven't distilled it to the elements of income and outgo. So I would say that the financial piece and how that merges with the marketing plan are probably the biggest areas of, what's the word, information that people need to be successful.
That was incredibly powerful and helpful, by the way. Thank you so much for explaining. You gave us a bunch of golden nuggets in that explanation. So thank you so much for that. That's definitely a rewind and watch over and over again piece right there.
Mhm.
Mentioned like you kind of advocate and for this initiative. You probably have seen a lot of, changes, growth, happening for women entrepreneurs in business over your experience. And what's one of your favorite things that you saw happen on a state or federal level for women in
Oh.
business that you were a part of?
Well, actually, I can think of something right off the bat, but just being in this field and seeing all uh, the talent and success is very motivating and exciting, and I have tons of success stories I could share with you. But what really happened in the last year or two, really the last year, was that our work in California on promoting childcare businesses and the work of women's business centers and promoting childcare business got the attention of the White House. And they reached out to the Small Business Administration that funds women's business centers, and they put, oh, probably another $1 million, maybe a little bit more, into an initiative specifically for women's business centers to help childcare providers get started and grow. And that's a national program. And we should know pretty soon who's getting those funds. I was just very proud that California led the way in providing the data on the impact. And I think that's what's really important. The economic impact and what is the return on the investment. You need always to be thinking about that when you're making your case to stakeholders and legislators and, Congress people. So we were able to do that because childcare is a hot button issue in blue states, but really in red states too, because people are concerned about the workforce and not enough women returning to the workforce after the pandemic. So we're still down around 10, 11% in California compared to 2019. So all that being said, we'll see what the impacts are, but that was as a result of our work here in California.
Wow, making big changes for us locals, Californians in the White House. $1 million is not a small amount of money. So I'm excited to see how that helps women in their childcare businesses, which is like such a good idea. Such a genius idea because the childcare, is here. It's so expensive, and the fact that women can be a childcare entrepreneur within their own home or something, and then get like a business loan or go through a invest in women's initiative, find out how to grow that business, sustain that business long term, so it becomes something lucrative and successful for women is such a smart idea, such a good idea. It's very
Yeah,
interesting.
well, a lot of childcare providers don't make very much money when they're just starting and they're only licensed for a few kids. It's very hard, but I've seen people grow and increase their licensing to 12 children and then are able to start making more of a profit, being able to recoup some of their expenses too. It's difficult. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but it is a way for immigrant women, women of color to start a business that helps their community and really helps children because they're getting licensed care from a skilled provider, and it also gives the parents confidence that they can go out and work and their child is well cared for. We need more government subsidies for lower income for childcare. We do have some. People get help finding it, but there's not enough of that. So I'm not, like I said, I don't want to sugarcoat it, but it is definitely having an impact. And I'm very curious to see what impact the government money, and hopefully it will continue in the new administration. Because as I said, red states and chambers of commerce in red states are the most conservative in the conservatives. And if they think childcare is important, then we're going to see, I hope, some action in that area.
That's kind of the beauty about this childcare industry because everyone has whether you're blue or red, we all have families, right? So we all like kind of affects everybody
Right. Exactly.
Invest in Women's Initiative when your partners, when state, federal, like the White House, whoever supports like women entrepreneurs for the childcare, for example, they like say they get 12 kids, they grow their business, it becomes lucrative for them. They take that money, they buy a house, they invest in their business. It supports the community because it's caring for children within the community. It really elevates the
Yes. Yeah.
community, and they're spending that money on on their families, and
Mhm.
that money goes back into the economy. So it's like a win-win cycle.
Right. If
Yeah.
somebody is watching this and is interested in starting a home-based childcare program or in their or to center-based, they should contact Lucero at the Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center, rencenter.org, and the phone number's there. She can help them learn more about the classes. And they have a particular target to work with childcare businesses. So it's Lucero at the rencenter.org. And if you're outside but in the Bay Area, you can still contact her and get help.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's so
Sure.
cool. I'm sure there will definitely be people using that. How can people join Invest in Women Initiative? How can people
Oh,
support Invest in Women
yeah.
Initiative?
If you want to support the Invest in Women Entrepreneurs Initiative, which is basically Claudia Viek, myself, and Isabel Menendez is my assistant, you can support one of the organizations that I mentioned. That could be if you wanted to make a donation, if you want to get involved as a volunteer, the Ren Center, A New America, Centro Community Partners, Prospera. Um, and those are the community-based organizations that work with entrepreneurs directly in our communities. So the other way you could support my work is to write a letter stressing the importance of supporting women entrepreneurs. And you could write it to your state assembly person or state Senator Scott Wiener's one of our state senators. Her name's Stefani, forget her first name. Anyway, she's the new assembly person for the governor's office, Governor Newsom's office of it's called the Governor's Office of Business, Go Biz. If you write a letter to them, again, you can Google it and you can get the right person to send it to. That's always super supportive. Claire Whitmer is the Director of Outreach and Engagement for the California Office of Small Business Advocate, CALOSBA. That's the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. Claire is a friend, and also she's in charge of outreach and engagement. Write her a letter. People love to hear from the constituents. So I really encourage people. It does make a difference. When you write a letter, people actually read it and see it. So that would be great help to me in my work. And certainly if people want to reach me for some other reason, they can go through you and find my address, or you can just Google Invest in Women Entrepreneurs Initiative and you can get connected to me that way. So I hope this was
Awesome.
helpful.
That's what it is totally. And I just want to, I will link investinwomeninitiative.org in the description. And also just wanted to, I was looking it up. Catherine Stefani was who you were referring to, I believe, California
Catherine
State
Stefani.
Representative. And it's really fascinating that you recommend writing letters because especially because this is your work, this is your focus. So the fact that it means a lot coming from you to say that they do get read and it
Yeah.
does make a difference, because that
Yeah.
is still encouraging to know that they still do. That's positive to hear. So, and also I wanted to ask you a last question. I like to ask all guests is, it's the Allies for Justice podcast, and it's just How have you been an ally for justice this week or recently? Just a fun little example.
I am trying to set up an event with some very key people in the governor's office, with some of our women's business centers to emphasize the impacts so that we will continue to have support. So that's a very big lift to get these people attention because there's a lot of concern at the state level right now because of the Trump administration's threats to California and to immigrant people, undocumented people, women's health, and our funding for women entrepreneurs is at risk because of these other risks coming in, these other very, very important priorities. But if we don't support women to be able to make money and support their households and start childcare centers, then we're defeating the purpose. So, especially when you see who benefits, which are immigrant women, a lot of Latinos, and many, many people in low income communities benefit from the entrepreneurship programs I mentioned. So that's what I did for social justice today. Trying
Very
to
powerful.
set up this event. Yeah. So I'm always doing something like that. It's, never ending, but it's what, it's my higher purpose. And I feel very blessed to be able to work in this field, to meet people like you, Julia, who are really committed. And thank you for everything that you do too in the Institute.
Helps having really inspiring and influential guests in our community like yourself really help give value to this podcast. Without guests like you, this podcast would just be meaningless. So
Okay,
thank
well,
you.
thank you for the compliment, and I was happy to participate, and good luck in the future. This is an entrepreneurial endeavor as well, and you're competing with for a lot of mind share. So good luck for you too, Julia, in your career. So
Thank
I gotta
you.
run. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, Claudia. Bye.
Stay in touch.